The Startup Way: How Modern Companies Use Entrepreneurial Management to Transform Culture and Drive Long-Term Growth. Eric Ries, Portfolio Penguin, 2017. Many useful tips to review with the startup method your own ideas about organizations and leadership, know how to maximize the entrepreneurial side of your employees, keep up with the times and go from simple changes to continuous transformation in your business. The author. Eric Ries is a young entrepreneur and world-famous speaker. He is one of the founders of the IMVU social game and author of Startup Lessons Learned, a very popular blog in the United States. From his numerous experiences and mistakes, he has elaborated the Lean Startup method, which has become a global movement. He is currently an advisor for startups, large companies, and venture capital firms. The 5 Principles of the Startup Method. In the wake of the great success of the Lean Startup Method book, companies have begun to wonder if they can use the same Lean Startup Method techniques to keep their organizations from slowing down and becoming bureaucratic as they grow. The author has therefore devised a series of principles that can be applied after the launch phase of a company, combining the rigor of general management with the strongly repetitive nature of startups. The 5 basic principles of the startup method are: 1. Continuous innovation. Long-term growth needs a method to constantly find innovations, drawing from creativity and talent at every level of the company. 2. Startup as atomic unit of work. In order to create continuous cycles of innovation, companies must have teams dedicated to experimenting and research. These teams are like internal startups and need different organizational structures to differentiate them. 3. The missing function. The management of startups within a business ecosystem can bewilder a traditional system. Most companies do not cover this fundamental role in their organizational system, entrepreneurial spirit, which is as vital as marketing, finance, and other traditional sectors. 4. The second founding. Deeply transforming a business structure is somewhat like relaunching it. 5. Continuous transformation. All this requires the development of a new skill, the ability to rewrite the company's DNA in response to new and different challenges. Once the transformation has been implemented, it is worth moving forward. This does not mean that each and every team has to reorganize itself according to the principles of the startup, or that each employee is going to magically start working like an entrepreneur. The goal is to ensure that the team works reliably and that all employees have the opportunity to act in an entrepreneurial way. At the same time, managers must become experts in entrepreneurial management to guide the team more successfully. Respect the past, invent the future. How to create a modern company. Jeff Immelt, former CEO of General Electric, argues, "Nobody wants to work at an old-fashioned company. Nobody wants to buy products from an old-fashioned company." How to differentiate a modern company from an obsolete one? By observing how it behaves. A modern company makes use of all its workers' talent and creativity. One of the biggest problems of today's entrepreneurs is coexisting with the anxiety derived from the unpredictability of the world in which we live in. The daily challenges they face in order to advance the soul of their businesses leave little room to motivate and try new ideas. For most of the 20th century, a company's growth was constrained to its capacity. Companies had to produce and sell more to grow. The rules of competition were mainly price, quality, variety, and distribution. Currently, the global market has ensured that new products can be devised and built everywhere, shifting the basis of competition towards concepts such as design, brand, business model, or technological platform. This is the context in which a modern company works, and precisely for this reason, it constantly needs new sources of growth, which can only come from continuous innovation. Traditional management tools do not work in the uncertain environment companies currently operate in. There was a time when companies made decisions based on reliable forecasts and estimates, but now it is different. Startups move in diverse contexts, with new products and a new audience, and cannot rely on a system of estimates and forecasts that no longer works. However, even in situations where you cannot make forecasts, you can plan. As many companies currently find it difficult to face this new reality, the objective of the process presented by the startup method is also to create a new way of considering organizations and leadership that can be the basis of growth and innovation in the 21st century. Modern leadership and management need swift testing to discover which strategies will favor a long-term vision. The missing role in big business: entrepreneurial spirit. Usually, each operational function of the company also has a person in charge who coordinates activities. But within a company, who is responsible for tackling uncertainty, finding new ways to grow, and translating this search into sellable products? In small companies, it is usually the owner, and in large companies, no one. So the time has come to see entrepreneurship as a core discipline of modern businesses. Like marketing, human resources, or accounting, entrepreneurship instills a new way of looking at the entire organization. Companies must be able to launch projects without compromising the entire business. One way to do this is to form internal startups, supervised by the entrepreneurial role. These startups are a kind of sub-business units, different from any other type of project, much like companies within the company. These startup projects can grow into true new divisions of the company. Entrepreneurial spirit has to be integrated with the company and should not only be the entrepreneur's task, but it should also be everyone's. In order to maximize the entrepreneurial side of workers, we must bear in mind that valid ideas can be born within any level of the organization. Therefore, one of the responsibilities of an entrepreneurial spirit is to let the mindset of startups penetrate the cultural fabric of the organization. Successful management as a result of a startup mindset. Having a startup mindset means believing in a certain type of management. These convictions are the pillars of the structure that enable Silicon Valley-style companies to succeed by taking risks and growing rapidly. For companies that think innovatively, teams are the foundation of everything. Normally, traditional managers look for good ideas, valid strategies, and a solid business. Only then do they look for the right people who can further the project. Staff is evaluated through traditional criteria: prior experience, CV, and in some cases, a little politics. By contrast, innovative entrepreneurs decide their investments based, first of all, on the qualities of the team. Startups believe in small teams because a small team is often capable of great things. In a small team, there are strong ties between members because you essentially believe in the same things and work to achieve the same goals. In addition, communication within a small team is more efficient. It works swiftly, and the slowness of the bureaucracy is almost non-existent. Another important factor is scarcity. When you really want to achieve a goal but do not have resources, you are forced to focus more. Startups are cross-functional. Although they might start with a team made up solely of engineers, for example, over time they face different challenges and problems related to many other sectors: finance, customer acquisition, marketing, etc. And this multifunctionality often leads to unexpected results. All projects start with the customer in mind. Innovative companies aspire to captivate their customer by providing a solution that is vastly superior to what they have tried before. The culture of startups is experimental. It's a combination of vision and mission. Innovative companies are obsessed with their vision and the visionary founder who can put it into practice. Vision is the part of their mission that is non-negotiable. Lessons from the Lean Startup Method. The startup method arises as a consequence of the Lean Startup movement, which was born to help startups understand what to do and how to act every day. Bases of the Lean Startup Method. 1. Leap of faith assumptions. The Lean Startup Method is designed to operate in uncertain situations where precise forecasts cannot be made. In these cases, a series of hypotheses about what we would like to see happen can be made. These hypotheses are leap of faith assumptions. These hypotheses have to be verified through experimentation. It is obviously not necessary to try them all, but only those that can have a significant impact on the business. It is important to formulate the hypotheses before entering the creation process. The hypotheses will not always be correct. The goal is, in fact, to learn. Among the different leap of faith assumptions that a startup can make, there are two fundamental ones. The value hypothesis, which investigates whether a product or service really captivates the customer, and the growth hypothesis, which investigates how you can gain more customers. 2. Minimum viable product, MVP. Create an experiment where you test your hypotheses in the fastest and cheapest way possible. An MVP is a kind of prototype product that allows the team to collect valid information about their customers. It quickly transforms an idea into something real, albeit imperfect. 3. Validated learning. This is what comes out of the MVP, the information about what people really want. It is the scientific information that is obtained from the series of experiments we have made and the understanding we gain from the tests. 4. Build, measure, learn. Creating an MVP is not an isolated process. After having measured and analyzed the results, it may be necessary to build another one. When the pursuit of perfection is replaced by a willingness to experiment and adapt the original idea, the ultimate result will be a better product. 5. Pivot or persevere. The goal of all this experimentation is to be able to decide whether to change, pivot, or continue. If each experiment is more productive than the previous one, if the team learns, and if there is data to support the hypotheses, then it is necessary to continue in that direction and create a new MVP. Otherwise, if there is still negative or indifferent feedback from the customer, a pivot is needed. A pivot is a change in strategy without changing your vision. Each pivot generates a new series of hypotheses, and the process starts again. The 21st century and the entrepreneurial management system. All systems have their problems. Old companies squander an incredible amount of talent and energy because they repress innovation with rigid, outdated structures and protocols. Startups are struggling because of their success. Systems that work well in small businesses don't adapt to growth, and as a result, the business comes to a standstill. Entrepreneurial leadership is a leadership system created in response to the uncertainty of the 21st century, but it is not intended to replace traditional leadership. It is a discipline designed to help leaders become as meticulous in the entrepreneurial part of their management as they are in the traditional part. The startup method fundamentals. Responsibility. The systems, rewards, and incentives that drive employees' behavior and focus their attention. These accountability systems have to be aligned with the company's goals. Processes. The instruments and tactics that employees routinely use to work, such as project planning, management, team coordination, etc. Culture. The shared beliefs that determine what workers believe they can do. Culture is the company's memory, and it is built over time. Each culture attracts a certain type of person, the company's resources. A toxic and obsolete culture repels innovative talents. Entrepreneurial and general management principles have some points in common: the importance of long-term thinking and common values, as well as the need for meticulousness and discipline. Phase 1. The beginning of transformation. Regardless of the company's size, the first steps to implement this new way of working are always studied on a case-by-case basis and are chaotic. The beginning of transformation according to the startup method. 1. Start with a limited number of projects and use them to create a certain number of cases, stories, and results to show how the new method works. In this first phase, the results of the previous projects are observed, and what has worked and what has not is also analyzed. 2. Form specific and cross-functional teams to undertake the pilot projects. The goal of these teams is to harness and share the collaborative energy of the different disciplines within the organization. 3. Create a growth system that allows executives to make clear and fast decisions about different projects. 4. Teach teams how to create experiments adopting the lean startup method. 5. Use the appropriate metrics to evaluate the results of these experiments. To know if you are doing well or not, you must use leading indicators that measure validated learning. Leading indicators tell the team if the process is working. The metrics are used to measure the success of entrepreneurial projects. 6. Create a network of leaders within the organization that can help solve problems that arise. Teams working on the startup method should have someone in charge of the company who can solve problems if they should arise by involving the larger organization, executive sponsor. 7. Transform new concepts into tools and company-specific language. Learning to work according to the startup method means finding ways to adapt and apply new instruments specifically to each of its companies. In order to carry out all these changes, there must be a driving force that pushes a company to implement them. A crisis, it is often precisely a crisis that induces change. A strategy, if we implement a new organizational strategy, we will most likely also need new ways of working. Or overgrowth. Success can have the same impact as a crisis and therefore induce change. These three scenarios put a considerable amount of energy into operation. Phase 2. Growth. It doesn't matter how, but when the time for decisive action comes, all the hard work and preparation for this phase are worth it. Transformation releases a lot of latent creativity and energy. Suddenly what seemed to be impossible is now possible. The secret is to be prepared. The second phase has to do with growth and the use of the methods, identified through the efforts in Phase 1, that are most suitable for a company. Just as in the previous phase, there is no correct or unequivocal way to tackle it, but there are key characteristics that help it move forward. 1. Review and identify the challenges teams have faced in Phase 1 during the pilot projects. When a company enters Phase 2 of the transformation, it has two main sources of information. The first is a result of all the steps the teams have taken to start the projects: hiring, approvals, licenses, etc. Everything that was done ad hoc now has to be systematized. The other source is the results of the projects. Some will have been successful and become paragons. Others will have failed, but they will have still produced information. One of the biggest challenges innovators have to face in Phase 2 comes from within the managers themselves, who are used to working traditionally. It is not easy to convince them to change the system, and even if they are convinced, change does not happen overnight. Their objections must be considered, and ways to help them cope with change must be found. 2. Develop and present a system for working in the new way. Sharing information about new methods within the organization is a fundamental part of the second phase. 3. Correctly identify and use executive-level champions to reinforce new methods. The champion is neither a trainer nor an executive sponsor. They must remove the obstacles the teams face as the new practices become stronger. These interactions must be systematic and proactive. Executive support serves to spread the message that this is the new way the company intends to work. 4. Train the representatives of the different internal departments. Create training courses that teach different departments how the new method works. Some departments may feel disinterested or skeptical, but this is a risk that must be taken in order to properly train the entire company. 5. Create an internal coaching program. The best practices of the method are only guidelines, a kind of philosophy that facilitates concepts and instruments, but since each company is different, it is necessary to create internal coaching programs that help the team change its mindset. It is generally preferable that these programs are developed by coaches within a company. In fact, having internal coaches saves the costs of external consultants, and internal coaches know the company better and are able to better motivate workers as well. 6. Implement metered funding mechanisms and growth boards. Most 100-worker companies use the same expense planning process. There is normally an annual budget process in which all projects, departments, and initiatives are evaluated. The winners receive financing for the following year with quarterly controls. Unfortunately, when the quarter goes badly, financing may be limited and in some cases may even be cancelled entirely. This is called entitlement funding, a system that has many uncertainties and that does not guarantee success. On the contrary, the objective of the metered funding system is to grant absolute freedom to spend money, with very strict criteria to unlock more. All startups have a board to which they must give an account and explanations. This creates a direct relationship between the financing of projects and their progress. An internal startup works the same way as an independent startup, with team responsibility. A growth board verifies that the team is always responsible and reliable. Phase 3. Adopt the management culture. Every successful company has a second story, a story that begins when the initial journey ends, which transforms a brilliant idea into reality. It is like a second founding. It is the period in which the company, once a project, transforms into a self-sustained organization. It is the moment in which the company grows and adopts a management culture. Unfortunately, for too many companies, it is also the time when bureaucracy and slowness show their heads, and many innovative people are left behind or quit. In Phase 3, you have to face this transition while maintaining the startup mentality. Companies have to transform their internal processes and create departments that are in a position to create continuous innovation. It is about changing deep systems to support innovation and give the company longevity and value. This phase is the most personalized one because all companies are different and because there are no systems that work the same way for all of them. You need to take everything that the transformation has shown in the early stages and use it to create solutions that include every aspect of the organization. How to avoid standstills in order to continue evolving. At one point, the transformation will have grown enough to affect the entire structure and will have taken the place of what it had to replace. Then it will be too large for radical changes. This often prevents further changes from being implemented later on, causing the transformation to come to a standstill. Once a transformation has taken place on a large scale, the proper approach is to start a new transformation with a new founder and a new startup team. Test, experiment, and learn. See how and if the new approach improves the previous one, and based on the results, integrate a new approach into the existing system or replace it entirely. In other words, just as the lean startup system invited us to go from innovation to continuous innovation, the startup method invites us to go from a simple transformation to continuous transformation. We have to follow a discipline of meticulous change, always ensuring the new structure is better than the old one. The startup method within policies. The entrepreneurial principles of the startup method can and should also be used to develop policies that create conditions that allow future generations of entrepreneurs to succeed. In order to promote economic growth that follows the startup model, it will be necessary to create, on the one hand, policies in favor of companies, fewer restrictions, more competition, more collaboration between the public and private fields, and on the other hand, policies that favor workers, a protected work environment, reasonable insurance, etc. For a public policy to be truly in favor of the entrepreneurial spirit, it must affect at least one of these three aspects. 1. Vision and benefits. Everything that can be done to help people find valid ideas and believe in them. 2. Skills and resources. Policies that help people start a business. 3. Risks and obstacles. Everything that protects the company against bankruptcy or makes it profitable. The future and innovative companies. We must be prepared to face the future, even if it is uncertain. By stimulating constant experimentation, we will be much more capable to use new technological discoveries to create new and more powerful organizational forms. The transformation process of the startup method is not the end, but the beginning. A company's ability to test and learn from experiments, to promote the best techniques globally, and to limit or rule out the rest are what will give the organization the ability to grow and succeed in the modern era. This is the true promise of the startup method, a management system that contains the basis of its own evolution, providing everyone with the opportunity to be entrepreneurs. A system that allows us to build a more inclusive, innovative society. Quotes: "In today's marketplace of uncertainty, whoever learns fastest wins." The success of any organization depends on the caliber of the people it is able to attract and retain. Part of the problem in today's management practices is that many people aren't given the responsibility and the opportunity to think bigger. I believe that genius is widely distributed. Opportunity is not. Take-home message. The principles of traditional and entrepreneurial management have to be combined to allow the company to create innovation, acquire values, and guarantee longevity. For innovation to occur in continuous cycles, companies should create specific teams within themselves that can experiment and research. These teams should operate as if they were internal startups, working differently from the company that hosts them. We need to consider that the entrepreneurial spirit has to be an integral part of a company and that it can emerge from any level of its structure.